Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey guys, Forces News video. Why trench warfare is a thing of the past, is no longer a thing of the past for the British Army. Big difference. Yeah, original link to the video, top of the description. My name's Connor if you're new. Let's learn what's going on.
Right, I'm going to smoke to the right so we can push around to the left to clear the bunker, and then we're going to deal with that. Happy?
What's happening in the wider sphere of the world, the British soldier needs to be adaptable to any nature that we're going to. We are going to encounter trenches.
Man down! Man down!
We are going to encounter close quarter battle fighting, so it's important that we're adaptable to any terrain that we go into, that we've got drills and skills ready to meet the enemy.
So until the...
Sorry,
Close quarter battle fighting, so it's important that we're adaptable to any terrain that we go into, that we've got drills and skills ready to meet the enemy.
So until the war in Ukraine, I genuinely thought that trench warfare really was a thing of the past, but the footage that has come out of Ukraine over the last couple of years has really shown how those skills are essential, and that's...
Sorry, I'll let her...
That's what is being taught here in
First of all, it looks like those trenches look really well made, but wouldn't you want to cover these? I know this is just training, but in the real scenario, if this was a real, trench built for fighting in modern conflict, wouldn't you want it cover this with dirt or whatever medium is around you, and make sure not to have reflective, shiny? Wouldn't you want it to blend in from an aerial perspective for reconnaissance drones or something, and it makes it easier to... No, maybe not. I just...
Drills and skills
look really nice to
meet the enemy.
Sergeant's battle
experts.
Where a week is spent focused on trench warfare.
A lot of the instructors here they're experts in what we call close quarters combat. So that is, instead of fighting across open plains, that is down in the nitty-gritty. But that takes parallels from urban combat as well. So all these different lessons coming together to be utilised in the trench systems, fighting on close quarters.
We've alluded to it and talked about it often, about the FLOT and marking of the FLOT.
FLOT stands for Forward Line of Own Troops.
As a platoon commander, it's important that you understand where the FLOT is. This enables you then as a platoon commander to adjust the fire support so it's going in front of the troops and suppressing depth to enable those lead elements to close with and destroy the enemy.
So FLOT is just basically the front line, or did I miss a difference?
So the breaking's the hardest point. Obviously, actually getting to the trench. Obviously, you can see with the bunkers, and obviously enemy positions being within the bunkers. Obviously, got massive arcs of fire onto us. So it's obviously us trying to keep as low as possible.
There are around 300 metres of trench networks here, built in the style of those being used by Russian and Ukrainian troops. Like these, vast networks of fortifications reminiscent of World War I have become an integral part of that war.
So these trenches that you can see behind me are different to the way we build trenches. So you can see from behind me that there's long areas that are all connected. We do trenches differently. We have what's called a fire-team trench. So they're different, smaller groupings, separated in space. The reason why we use it is so if someone breaks into our trenches, they then need to get out of the trench, expose themselves again to get into another position.
Oh.
An issue we see with this is once you're in the trench, you can stay in the trench, providing you with that cover.
What?
British troops might not...
What? I need to stop talking. Just...
separated in space.
I thought he meant a bunch of turns, 90-degree turns, rather than... You don't want one stretch of it to be too, straight for too long of a distance, because... if there's an explosion, then that blast wave is going to affect someone further away in a straight line than if it has to, go around a corner. But then
Team trench. It's the way we build trenches.
Integral part of that wall.
So these trenches that you can see behind me are different to the way we build trenches. So you can see from behind me that there's long areas that are all connected. We do trenches differently. We have what's called a fire team trench. So they're different, smaller groupings, separated in space. The reason why we use it is so if someone breaks into our trenches, they then need to get out of the trench, exposing themselves again to get into another position. An issue we see with this is once you're in the trench, you can stay in the trench, providing you with that cover.
British troops.
Okay. I think I understood that. So separated trenches, but then, okay. So he's saying it's better to have a bunch of kind of segmented lines, like a dashed line rather than a full line of trench, so that the enemy, when breaking in, has to go up and down to get to the next one. And then I thought, well, then your troops have to do the same thing if they want to go around, but then he just said, you don't have to do that much. And in a defensive scenario, having to get out of the trench and back in is going to be more of a nuisance for the attacker than the defender, and so it's worth it. Did I get that right?
Troops might not build them like this, but they still need to know how to fight in them. The Ukrainians have been here for training too, and have shared useful lessons from fighting the Russians.
We work with the Ukrainians. It was very good to see how they do things. Obviously, what they said to us was that obviously we're a professional organisation, and a lot of them are just like ex-farmers or, you know, work in shops and stuff like that. But obviously, they're a
lot of experience.
For where they've come from, I'd say they're a lot better than what even they think they are.
Right, long corridor front.
Yeah, at that point, you're the soldier. Even though you used to be a farmer or a non-soldier before, you've had real war experience, which I think is super valuable for also having countries in your alliances that have had recent conflicts. Because as good as you are on paper, if you haven't been tested, I would even say multiple losses is better to have someone who's experienced that than someone who is not experienced much fighting at all. So I get what he said there.
Push, long corridor. Yep. Push long. Roger. Stay there, stay there.
So I need to get from here to there. There's an enemy there. Can't grade it. I've got a stoppage. Let's get aggressive and then cadence fire and close the distance to the enemy. It needs to become a little bit more of a sort of taught drill and instinctive to us that we're going to do it.
Trench warfare may have almost made it to the history books, but it's now definitely back on the UK military training agenda. Claire Sadler, Forces News, Brecon. Thanks for watching. For more from Forces News...
Thanks for making. I love watching these little videos. Oftentimes, I think they're too short, and sometimes I'll react to a few, but it kind of gives me more leeway. I like to talk a lot, if you haven't noticed. And I, much more often than not, have to stop myself from talking than thinking of what to say. So I feel a little bit more free to kind of pause and ask questions. One more question before we go. Wouldn't, hold on, I need to get an example. Right.
To any terrain that we go into that we've got. Say that these are your trenches, and you can see the cursor, right? Yeah, you can. Say this is your trench, and this way is where your enemy is. So like this is where you're facing, and this is behind you. Wouldn't you want to make trenches that have whatever side the front line is towards, or the enemy is towards where you're shooting at, exchanging fire, is more elevated? Well, then you just have to get up anyway. Like it is more elevated on the attacking side, so that it's because if artillery is coming in, it's a lot easier to drop it in there than if you had more of a mound here, which would mean that you'd have to kind of go up here to return fire or to attack.
But for incoming artillery, wouldn't it be better to have it like this? And if you lost a trench, it would be more easy to recapture it because the enemy now has a trench that is mounted to their rear and has open for artillery fire. So it's kind of like a win-win. Or am I not thinking right here? Or is it just not practical? You'd have to move tons of dirt where I'm sure you have a lot of, you know, other responsibilities to do. It's not like you're chilling right after you finish the trench. So maybe it's not feasible, but is there some flaw in my logic? Easily could be. Hope you guys are doing well. Would appreciate any answers to any of my questions, any comments down below. Would love if you to like and subscribe. It's up to you. And hopefully I'll see you next video. Bye, guys.